I'm Nigel Slater. I love simple cooking, and my favourite dishes are often based on the simplest combinations. And that's what I'll be looking at this series, from soft and crisp, to surf and turf, to something spicy with something cool. All those elements that make something quite exciting to eat. It's acidic, and it's hot, and it's sweet, and it's sour, and it's all mixed up. I'll be looking at classic combinations, and some surprising new twists. Wow. I want to show you why they work so well, so you'll feel confident to produce food marriages that are made in heaven. Oh, that smells amazing. I'm starting with an all-time favourite, sweet and sour. My love of sweet and sour started with Mum's pancakes with lemon and sugar, and now it's little meringues and lemon curd. From light suppers and tasty snacks to a heavenly dessert, this is going to be a wonderful treat for the taste buds. A cook never stops learning, and I'm no exception. So as well as creating my favourite sweet and sour dishes, I'll be meeting two friends to see how they cook theirs. Just amazing. Thank you very much. The combination of sweet and sour is the secret behind so many of our meals, including one of my all-time favourites. I do love the Sunday roast. That big family-sized piece of meat and all those luscious little accompaniments. But until recently, I hadn't worked out what it really is that I so love about it. What I realised is that it's the marriage of the very sweet meat, quite rich and fatty, with that knife-sharp sauce that cuts through it. And my favourite of all, roast pork and apple sauce. Of course, it's not a weekday thing. I want something quicker and cheaper. So I cook a chop, a big pork chop. People are often surprised to think of meat as sweet, but it is, especially pork. So to bring out that sweetness, I'm going to simply pair my chop with some sharp gooseberries, though a tart apple or pear would do. I love a chop, especially a big one with a bone in it. And a lovely rim of fat to go with it. Add nothing more than a sprinkling of salt and pepper before popping into the pan with a little butter and oil. When the surface of the meat and the fat hits the hot pan, the sugars in it start to caramelise and you get this layer of sweet, sticky goo forming on the bottom of the pan. And once I put my sour fruit in there, then the two come together to form the sweet and the sour. It's a wonderful mixture. And there's always that temptation to move the chop around the pan, but I don't want to. I want to leave it be to form a crust underneath. So a little bit of pepper. I fancy a few herbs in there too. A few sprigs of thyme always works beautifully with pork. I need a little bit of liquid in there. And it's pork, so cider would work, white wine would work. I'm going to use a little bit of white vermouth. And this will sizzle and spit a bit. Just about a wine glass full. But what's happening is that the liquid that I've poured in is going to dissolve all the gooey sweetness that's stuck to the bottom of the pan. And it will also help to soften my gooseberries, which will only take a matter of minutes. The only way to really tell, of course, is to taste. There's a lovely sourness there, but this is the point. When I work out whether I'm going to put a little bit more sugar in, or whether it needs more sourness, a squirt of lemon juice, maybe a bit of cider vinegar. I think that needs a tiny little bit of sugar, not much. This is where it gets interesting and we can make the dish our own. When the gooseberries are like a rough puree, they are ready to serve up. Don't forget the juices in the pan, because that's where the sweetness of the meat juices and the sourness of the fruit have got together, and that's where the real magic is. So, got that sourness I was after, and the sweetness from the meat. You don't really think of meat being sweet, but actually it is, especially where the sugars caramelise, and then they mix with all the sourness from the fruit, and that's exactly what I'm after, that sweet and sour kick. This is such an easy and tasty recipe to show how sour and sweet works in the kitchen. Pork and gooseberry is my favourite, but you could use apple or any sharp fruit you have around. Just don't forget to let your meat caramelise in the pan for the most delicious results. I'm a big believer that a cook should never stop learning. Shopping is great for inspiration, particularly the bakers. There seems to be a new flavour of loaf every time I go. Rye bread is a favourite, a classic sourdough loaf. I've never really experimented with its bitter quality though, other than a safe sandwich. But that's exactly what I want to try and do now. And I have the perfect sweet partner in mind. It occurred to me that I haven't yet used the sweet veg for my sweet and sour. So I've gone for the sweetest of all, beetroot. My first experience of it was pickled beetroot, which I hated when I was a kid, and now I love. I want another way to introduce sourness to it. And because it works so well with goat's cheeses, it occurred to me that I can play with that somehow. So it's a bit of an experiment, this dish. I'm going to mix the beetroot with the goat's cheese and see if I can use my loaf too. It's just a chance to explore the sweet and the sour relationship really, and see what we can get. I've decided to roast the beets with a little oil and simple seasoning. I could boil them, but when you roast a beetroot, the sweetness intensifies, and I really want to push the sweet and sour. A splash of water will help keep them moist. I'll just wrap it up loosely and then bake it for probably about 40 minutes until it's just tender to the point of a knife. These beautiful beetroot leaves are too tasty for the compost, so they'll just get a quick rinse and a steam. It's a 2-minute job. This is where the fun starts. Now my beetroot is cooked, I can start introducing some other flavours. I'm just going to put a little bit of vinegar in. Could use red wine vinegar, but I'm thinking I want something sweeter and fruitier. So this is a bit of raspberry vinegar. I want something really sharp with this. And I know that goat's cheese works very well with beetroot. It's the only cheese that does. But the reason it works is because it's got that little piquancy, that little spritz of sourness to it. To push this sourness as far as I can, I'm adding some goat's yogurt to the cheese. A little bit of seasoning, some salty gherkins, and a few chives will finish off my sour cheese mix. Now for that juicy beetroot with its raspberry vinegar dressing, those crunchy beetroot leaves, and lastly, my fresh sour bread. So, I've taken the sweetest veg and made the sourest dressing. So many things I make, I know exactly what it's going to be like. And sometimes it Comes as a surprise. I knew that the beetroot would be sweet and a little bit earthy, and I knew that the goat's cheese would be a little bit sour. But by putting in the yoghurt and by putting in the raspberry vinegar, I've heightened the whole thing. And it's absolutely delicious, and it's very sweet and sour. It just goes to show what you can do with one simple principle. I've always been fascinated with food from other cultures, and when it comes to sweet and sour, the countries of Southeast Asia take some beating.
Well, I grew up in a family and there was always a lot of cooking. You know, we made meals 2-3 times a day, and there was always anniversaries and big gatherings and Sundays.
How can I help you, please? Chicken, yeah? I think food is something very personal. It's the best way to express yourself. You know, people eat and people can tell how much love you put into it.
Anne and Van are best friends who share a passion for Vietnamese cuisine. Down at their local market, they've developed quite a following for their traditional sweet and sour street food. What makes it good? I'd love to find out how these girls became such great cooks. So they're rustling up one of their specials for me, a sea bass summer roll with pineapple dip. It all starts with a special marinade for the fish. So how come you're cooking? Who taught you to cook?
I have a lot of influence from my mother, but then I observe a lot, you know, when I come to this country, which is about 10 years ago. Yeah. And you realize, oh my God, the food is totally different. And then you miss all the home-cooked meal.
Sure.
And then I start to remember how my mother did it, and then I try to replicate it.
So ginger, garlic, chili, dill, water, and a little bit of sugar.
Yeah. So maybe about 4 of the lemon.
We usually put the fish sauce last because, you know, everything else you can kind of adjust, but the fish sauce is very powerful and it's very hard to sort of fix it. So we'd add it last and we sort of add it a little by little.
Anne is using one of my favourite ingredients to flavour the fish, lemongrass.
So we'll split the skin sort of just horizontally, maybe, you know, 3 times.
Simply so that the marinade gets right down.
So that the marinade just get into
so
it.
And then all the way in.
It's one of those dishes that really, really easy to make. You don't need a lot of, you know, crazy ingredients because it's all available. While that cooks,
the girls want to show me how they make their sweet and sour dipping sauce using a base of crushed pineapple.
Pour it. Just
Can you manage?
Yeah. This is a heavy one that you have.
It is the world's heaviest vessel of water. Shall I take that over your way?
Just careful.
You can start adding a bit of fish sauce in here.
And the amount,
it
depends very much on the sweetness of your pineapple.
No, exactly. Now, because like I say, the pineapple is a bit sweet, so I add a bit of lemon so that it's got that sourness. Now I think just add a bit of chili. Have a taste of that and see how.
Oh my God, it's delicious.
Yeah, so it's very simple. There's not much.
3 ingredients.
Yeah, there's 3 ingredients.
That is pretty much done. We should take this off now.
Magnificent looking fish.
There you go.
I'd normally just tuck right into that fish, but there's one last thing to do before the roll is ready to eat.
This is a rice paper. I normally use the thin one, and then you just add a bit of water so to wet it.
Ah, see, I've been soaking that. That's where I've been going wrong because I've been soaking them.
Because when you're soaking them, it become very too soft, pretty much too soft.
And very fragile.
Yes. So not too much noodles because you know you want to taste everything else. That. Then I would take the fish. Okay. You just pick the fish out.
Okay.
Yeah. I roll this first. Yeah, and then you can add
Cucumber,
courgette,
just a
pineapple or something.
The temptation is always to add a lot,
of
and
things.
make them really
Yeah, so then
big.
you roll it. So now you just roll it slowly. Then you can do this here.
And then we'll fold them over, and then
and
we
you
roll
roll
a
it.
bit more.
And then that's it.
So you
Just
probably
dip it
want to
in
put it in a
there.
Now,
plate.
and
or-
then, yep.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
So that is so good.
Yep.
And you know what I love about it more than anything else?
Yep.
Is when you get a bit of the fish skin.
Yeah.
The grilled fish skin
Yes.
Yeah.
with the pineapple
Yeah.
and with all the crunchiness.
Yep.
Just amazing. Thank you very much. So good.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I do.
Now I can sleep.
What a treat for the taste buds. I'll certainly be giving that one a go. You know, there's usually some sweet and sour in almost everyone's kitchen. That jar of chutney, either commercial stuff or something that very often has been given as a gift. There's wonderful people who make chutney themselves and give it away as presents. And it's so useful, and for far more than just sticking with your ploughmans. You can have it with roast beef, or maybe a bit of salmon. I like to call this my quick and easy oven chutney. It really couldn't be simpler, and will be the perfect partner to some oily salmon I've got tucked in the fridge. I'm using sweet shallots, but you could use small onions. I boil them for 10 to 15 minutes to soften them. It also makes the skins easier to get off. So I start my chutney recipe with some lovely soft brown sugar. It's usually a light muscovado, but you can use a dark one if you like a really rich chutney. You need a good 4 tablespoons. The sugar gives it a deep, rich base note. But that's not the only sweetness I'm going to use. Just stick some dried fruit in it. I've got raisins, I've got golden sultanas. You could use almost any dried fruit, like dried cranberries or even dried cherries. A few spices will balance the sweetness of the sugar and dried fruit. Allspice berries give warmth, and a sprinkling of mustard seed will give a lovely crunch. So that's the sweetness and the spice. I need a little bit of acidity in there. And for that, I'm using quite a bit of cider vinegar. Fruit vinegars tend to be quite mellow, so be generous. This chutney needs some extra savour, so a good handful of thyme is going in. Give it a generous seasoning before you put the onions in. You just need to squeeze them out of their skins. I want a hint of garlic too, so some whole cloves. Lastly, some cooking liquid from the onion water and some silky rapeseed oil. Olive oil will be just as lovely. It's a beautiful colour. I put 3 tablespoonfuls of this. A good stir. That will need around an hour in a moderate oven. This is my kind of chutney making. I just have a quick look at it, just to see how it's coming along. Just a little taste. There's plenty of sweetness there and a little bit of spice, but I think it needs a little bit more punch. So I'm going to just put in a wee bit more vinegar. It's the bit I really like about cooking, when you actually make a recipe your own. And you think it needs a little bit more spice, a little bit more salt, a little bit more sweetening. And it's when you put your fingerprint on it. I reckon the sour fruit and vinegars will be perfect with this oily salmon. All it needs is a little seasoning and a trickle of oil. should only need another 10 minutes before it's ready to eat. Smells very good. A little bit sharp, a little bit fruity. I'd be happy to eat it like that, but I always like a bit of green on the plate. So I'm just tempted to put a little bit of watercress on there too. I worried for a minute that the salmon wouldn't stand up to the pickle, but it so does. In fact, it's sensational. It really, really works. And a much better use for chutney than a ploughman's. It's a lovely little dish. It's the combination of the sweet dried fruits, silky onions, and sour vinegar that makes this simple chutney work. Put it with some juicy salmon or cold meat, and I promise you've got a truly divine supper. Best friends Anne and Van have inspired me with their Vietnamese stall food. I love how they use the freshest sweet and sour ingredients to make a delicious takeaway. I want to cook them something just as simple and tasty. It's my take on a fish finger sandwich using my favourite, monkfish. This is almost so simple, it's barely a recipe.
I think, food is the best when it's very simple.
It's slightly fashionable in Britain to actually throw as many ingredients as you can at something, and I'm fighting against it. I like to sort of take things away rather than add them most of the time. Now, I've got some limes here. I know you use lemons, but I thought I'd use limes.
Yeah. That's a huge one.
So I think of the spring onion as the sweetest of the onions. And what I'm hoping is that the sweetness of the onion and the sourness of the limes, and then the just natural sweetness of the fish, is kind of all going to work together in a very simple way.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is bone it up. I'm going to put a little bit of water in there.
Yep.
And hopefully it'll create its own steam.
Yeah.
I'm going to pop that on
Yep.
heat. Let's see. It's a bit of an experiment, this. I have got to be honest with you. So we'll see. These lovely, crisp chicory leaves are going to be the bread in my sandwich.
Boiling.
Well, something's happening.
Yeah.
It's bubbling, and I think
bubbling.
there's juice that's seeping out.
It smells
really good. Wow, we have lots of steam. Look at this.
Wow.
Oh, fantastic. Look at that.
It smelled really, really nice. It almost smelled like the sea to me, because you've got the sea salt, and then you've got the sweetness of the fish, and all the fishy and the sea salt. That's
And
really,
the lime.
and
The lime also rises. If you
Well, that's lovely to hear. Mind you don't dribble that juice down you.
That's it. Okay, thank you so much. It's really good.
What I'd really like, is that, exactly as it is. Well, you know that marinade you made?
Yeah.
No, it will be very
Just a little bit of that marinade.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like. Simple recipes like this are definitely the best way to taste different flavours. It really is worth experimenting though, so check out the website for lots of sweet and sour inspiration. I think my love of sweet and sour goes right back to when I was a kid. And I found the sourest thing I could possibly find, which was a cooking apple or a stick of rhubarb. I used to cut it into chunks and dip it into the sugar bag. It drove my mother mad, but I loved doing it. What I loved about it was that intense sweetness followed by a real punch in the face from the rhubarb, that real sourness. My grown-up version is a quick dish of rhubarb and caramel sauce. Real comfort food, but still gives me that sour hit with a wonderfully sugary sauce. Just throw a few sticks of chopped rhubarb into a pan with some sugar, just to take the sour edge off it. And the amount of sugar really depends on the rhubarb itself. So in the spring, when the rhubarb is actually quite sweet and very delicately flavoured, it doesn't need that much sugar at all. And as the year progresses, then I put a little bit more in. A drop of water will help soften the rhubarb. Just enough to poach it and to end up with a syrup. So I'm just going to cover that with a lid and just leave it to stew for a few minutes. Once the rhubarb is tender enough to take the point of a knife easily, it's ready. I'm just going to lift the rhubarb out. It's rather important that it's really soft and silky. Undercooked rhubarb is no fun at all. Now what's left in the pan is really the very essence of the rhubarb. So to that, I'm going to add some sugar. I'm using light muscovado sugar to give my sauce an almost butterscotch flavour. I just let that melt into the rhubarb juices. And to that, a little bit of cream. Cream works beautifully with any sour fruit. About 125 mils. And just stir that into the sugar and rhubarb juice. It's almost like making rhubarb and custard, except without the fat of making custard. Finally, a few drops of vanilla extract for extra sweetness. So, poached rhubarb, the rhubarb juice, and then this butterscotch sweet sauce, which tastes of sugar and it tastes of vanilla, but at its heart is actually the very essence of the rhubarb. So it's a mixture of sweet and sour. It is so lovely. So intense butterscotch sweetness and then a hit of true sourness. It's almost like a grown-up version of sticking my rhubarb into the sugar bag. Considering it was so little trouble, that's a real sweet treat. This twist on the classic rhubarb and custard marries the sweetest and the sourest to perfection. Just make sure your rhubarb is really soft. I've made some very different dishes here, but all share one thing in common. They taste great because of the marriage of two flavours. In this case, the sweet with the sour. Next time, I'll be exploring a very different pairing in the kitchen, surf and turf. I'll be rustling up some of my favourites and heading out to find out how other people do it too. It is absolutely gorgeous.